In the late 18th century, the most profitable place on earth was a small French colony called Saint-Domingue. It was a world of impossible numbers. It produced more sugar and coffee than any other place in the world. But another number was even more impossible. For every one free person living in this paradise, there were 10 others in chains, 500,000 souls trapped in a machine built to grind their lives into profit. This is the story of the moment those 10 decided they would no longer be ruled by the one. It is the story of a revolution the world tried to forget, and how an army of the enslaved defeated the greatest military power on the planet. This was the Pearl of the Antilles, a paradise built on hell. The French colony was not a society, it was a factory, and the fuel for this factory was human life. The system was designed to be a revolving door of death. It was cheaper to import a man from Africa, work him to death in 3 years, and buy another than to keep him alive. There was no illusion of humanity, just labor, pain, and a constant flow of new bodies to feed the sugar mills. Society was a pyramid of hate. At the top, the wealthy white planters, the Grand Blancs, who despised everyone. Below them, the poorer whites, the Petits Blancs, who hated the rich above and the free people of color below. And then, trapped in the middle, the gens de couleur libre. Many were the children of French masters and enslaved women. Some were wealthy, educated, even slave owners themselves. But they were never white enough. They were a people caught between two worlds, belonging to neither. And at the bottom, the massive, seething base of the pyramid, the 500,000 enslaved. They were not a monolith. They were Congo, Yoruba, Fon, peoples stolen from across West Africa. In the secret darkness of the night, they forged a new world from the ashes of the old. They practiced voodoo, a spiritual system that was more than a religion. It was a network, a source of identity, a secret language of resistance spoken right under the noses of their masters. For decades, this brutal system seemed unbreakable. But then, an ocean away, a fire was lit in Paris. Liberty, equality, fraternity. The cry of the French Revolution was a promise to some and a terrifying threat to others. In Saint-Domingue, a wealthy free man of color named Vincent Auger believed that promise was for him. He went to Paris and argued that men like him, free, propertied, and educated, deserved the rights of French citizens. He returned with a vague decree, but the colonial authorities refused to listen. Auger led a small uprising, not to free the slaves, but to claim his own rights. It was crushed, and he was made into a gruesome example, publicly tortured, broken on the wheel. His death sent a chilling message through the island's heart. There would be no peaceful path. If this was the fate of a wealthy free man, what hope was there for anyone else? The real spark did not come from a political assembly. It came from the heart of the forest during a voodoo ceremony that has passed into legend. On the night of August 14, 1791, at a place called Bois, Caïman, a voodoo priest named Dati Boukman gathered representatives from the plantations. Amid the storm, they swore an oath sealed in blood, to fight for freedom or to die. Boukman's voice, it is said, was pure fire. The God of the white man calls him to commit crimes, he declared. Our God asks for good deeds, but this God who is so good orders revenge. This was the point of no return. 1 week later, the northern plain exploded. Plantations burned. The symbols of their oppression were destroyed. The Haitian Revolution had begun. Out of this fire and chaos, leaders began to emerge. But one man stood above them all. He was more brilliant, more complicated, and ultimately more important than any other, Toussaint Louverture. Born into slavery, Louverture had been freed long before the revolution. He was educated, a master of strategy, a man who understood the colonial system from every angle because he had lived on every side of it. He did not lead with brute force, but with genius. He saw that 3 European empires, France, Spain, and Britain, were all fighting for this island. He didn't see a threat. He saw an opportunity. He allied with the Spanish to fight the French. Then, When revolutionary France abolished slavery in 1794, he switched sides, joined the French, and drove the Spanish out. Then, as a French general, he turned on the British invaders and in a stunning campaign defeated them completely. In just a few years, a formerly enslaved man had outmaneuvered two of Europe's great powers. By 1801, Toussaint Louverture was the undisputed ruler of the colony. At his side was a man who was his perfect opposite, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Born a field slave, illiterate, scarred by the whip. Where Louverture was a diplomat, Dessalines was a pure warrior, fueled by a burning hatred of the French. Louverture made him his most trusted lieutenant, his tiger. Together, they had freed Saint-Domingue. But their greatest test was just over the horizon. A new master had taken power in France, and Napoleon Bonaparte did not tolerate rivals. In Paris, Napoleon was furious. An army of ex-slaves, led by a black general, had created their own state in his empire. For Napoleon, this was an intolerable insult, but more than that, it was a threat to his grand design, an American empire, funded by the immense profits of Saint-Domingue. And that meant one thing: slavery had to be restored. In 1802, Napoleon sent the largest transatlantic expeditionary force in French history. Over 40,000 veteran soldiers, the best of his armies, sailed for Saint-Domingue. Their commander, Napoleon's own brother-in-law, had secret orders. First, pretend to be peaceful. Second, remove the rebel generals. Third, when control is absolute, disarm the black population and force them back into chains. When Louverture saw the fleet, he knew. The whole of France has come, he said, to force the blacks back into slavery. He and Dessalines fought a scorched earth campaign, burning the cities and retreating to their mountain fortresses. The ultimate test came at a small fort called Crête-à-Pierrot. Here, Dessalines and 1,200 rebels held off 15,000 French soldiers for 3 weeks. As French cannonballs rained down, legend says Dessalines stood on a barrel of gunpowder, torch in hand, and declared he would blow everything to hell before he surrendered. It was a declaration of total war, liberty, or absolute death. But Louverture, the diplomat, was lured into a trap. Promised a peace talk, he was betrayed, arrested, and shipped to France in chains. As the island disappeared behind him, he uttered a prophecy to his captors. "In overthrowing me, you have cut down only the trunk of the tree of black liberty. It will spring back from the roots, for they are many and deep." He would die, alone and freezing, in a French prison cell. Napoleon thought he had won. But he had made a fatal error. He had removed the diplomat, but he left the tiger. With Louverture gone, Dessalines took supreme command. And as his war of fire and vengeance raged, the French army's greatest enemy revealed itself. Not the rebel soldiers, but an invisible ally they could not fight: yellow fever. The disease, to which the local forces had some immunity, tore through the European ranks. Soldiers died by the thousands. The French army was rotting from the inside out. General Leclerc himself succumbed, his grand invasion collapsing into a fever dream. The final showdown came on November 18, 1803, at the Battle of Vertières. Dessalines led the final assault. The battle is remembered for an act of almost superhuman courage. An officer named François Capois, known as Capois the Death, led his men up a heavily defended hill. His horse was shot out from under him. He just got up, drew his sword, and yelled, "Forward! Forward!" as he charged on. The story is told that the French general Rochambeau was so stunned by his bravery that he ordered a temporary ceasefire. A French officer rode out and shouted, "General Rochambeau sends his compliments to the general who has just covered himself in such glory." Then the fighting resumed. The rebels were unstoppable. They fought with the desperation of men who knew that defeat meant a return to chains. The French were broken. On January 1, 1804, Jean-Jacques Dessalines declared independence. He did more than that. He took the French flag and, in a symbolic act of violent creation, ripped the white stripe out, erasing the presence of their former masters. He cast aside the colonial name Saint-Domingue and reclaimed the island's original indigenous Taino name, Haiti. The world's first black republic was born, the only nation in history forged in the crucible of a successful slave revolt. The Haitian Revolution sent shockwaves across the world. For Napoleon, the defeat was so total it shattered his dream of an American empire, forcing him to sell a vast tract of land to a young United States, the Louisiana Purchase. For the world's slave-owning powers, Haiti was a nightmare made real. They isolated the new nation, punishing it with crippling economic embargoes. France would later demand an obscene indemnity, a payment for its lost property, including the very people who had freed themselves. This ransom for a freedom already won would cripple Haiti's economy for more than a century. But the fire they lit could never be extinguished. The journey of Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines is a testament to the fact that history is not only written by emperors and conquerors, it is also written by those who simply refuse to remain in chains. What part of this incredible story stands out the most to you? Let us know in the comments. The fight for freedom is full of stories like this, and we're dedicated to uncovering more of the histories the world tried to forget. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them.